even record breaking, but it's like 90 degrees outside. And I don't have AC. It blew out, so that needs to be fixed. So I'm using a fan from across the room to, you know, give me some form of solace in this time of no cool air. Sorry about that. It sounded like there was something in my voice. I have nachos in quotations because, you know, it's not on top, but I wanted the chips to stay, you know, rigid and the cheese to be warm, so. Work has been fine for me, you know. Everything's still going perfectly fine. Part of a committee with my friend at work, and you know, been going well, can't complain. Side tangent before I begin. My story time. I love my coworkers. I think I'm very lucky to have coworkers where I look forward to going to work every day, and the people there actually enjoy me being there as well. I got extremely lucky. Now, story time is about the book review for it. You guys knew this was coming ever since I saw that one comment that said, "When's the book review?" It was bound to happen, you know, inevitable at this point. So I'm just gonna tell you a bit about the book. There's gonna be some spoilers, but depending on how far you're in the book, you should be fine. In fact, I'm just gonna tell you what I really liked about the book, instead of, you know, openly trying to spoil it. So, just to start off, I really did enjoy the book. I started really getting into reading this year, but last year I dabbled into it a bit. So, I just got cheese on my chest. That was fun. So first things first. First thing you probably notice from this book is that it is a really thick book. It is 2 inches thick. This book is 1,153 pages long. It is a very, very big book. So of course this book has a lot to talk about. And the one thing about this book that I noticed right away is arbitrary. Like, why would I know why would I care about this one guy in this one sentence? If he never brings it up, why would I care about this guy's son? But as the book goes on, you kind of realize, oh, that's the point. Because the book jumps from part one of the movie to part two and back and forth, right? The way part one is that it's the kids. If you guys have seen the movie, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen the movie for it. You start off as the kids in part one, and in part two, you start off as the adults and you're fighting it. But the book is going back and forth between flashbacks of their life. The book is technically set in 1985, but the flashbacks are entire sections, like hundreds upon hundreds of sections. So I don't know. Honestly, it's just kind of crazy when really talented, world-class authors write, because Stephen King's writing is so colorful despite it being a horror novel. And the thing about his writing, though, is that for me, it doesn't necessarily seem scary per se. Like, I never had a nightmare about it. But it's just some of the imagery that he shows would be so jarring to a normal person that, you know, I would like need therapy. But this book is definitely for adults, and I don't mean like 18 plus. I would really recommend 21 plus if you wanted to read it. It is a very, very mature book, although it does not seem it on paper. Very mature. Think of the worst thing you could possibly think of, like the nastiest, heinous act you can think of. It probably happened in it. I'll just leave it at that, because there are some parts that I will not go into because it was nasty. But anywho, you know, there's a lot of racial, you know, derogatory terms used, and he doesn't hold back. He continues to say it. And initially I was a bit upset because I'm like, wow, come on, like, why would you use that word or whatnot? I wasn't being butthurt, but it was just kind of disappointing. But as he continued to use certain words, I'm like, oh, he's making a point, right? So this book takes place in Maine. And Maine is North Shore, but it's still very isolated from any type of movement that would have been beneficial to people of color. So, you know, it's essentially a northern, I'm not going to say it, but you guys know. If you guys know about the Legion of White Decency, then you guys know. But, during the book, of course, they say these words, but it kind of shows a distinction between people who are brought up believing these derogatory terms and using it against these people versus people who, just say it as, well, not say it as it is, but, there's a point in them showing respect towards the person regardless of how they, what color they may be. And the kids are good people in this book, misunderstood, of course, dealing with their own issues, of course, but they are the heroes in our book. felt like I was with the kids. I was an 11-year-old trying to fight a monster that lurked in the sewers, all of that, you know. It felt like we met all the kids. It felt like we were one of the ones chosen, all of that. And the way Stephen King writes these kids, you can relate to at least one of them. And it is jarring how accurate he is with some of his predictions and some of the character traits he gives them that seem so unconscious that, you know, I just couldn't help but be like, were you one of these kids growing up, you know? Person that I bonded with most is a character named Ben. If you guys watch the movie, Ben is the fat kid. Ben, he eerily mirrored me at the same age. At the same age, I was fat. I wasn't necessarily out of well, let me phrase this correctly. Yes, I was out of shape, but I was very nimble for my size back at that age. And there was a lot of things that made me just say, Steven, were you fat as a kid? Because there were, okay, here's some examples, right? So during the summer, Ben would wear sweatshirts instead of like normal attire, like a short sleeve, oh my god, a short sleeve shirt, or a sleeveless shirt. Always a sweatshirt, and I resonated with that. I wore hoodies and sweatshirts as a kid. I even do it now because I don't know, it brought me comfort. It made me hide a body that I wasn't proud of. And when it came to any crush I had, they couldn't really see the shape of my body, which leads me to his crush on Bev. The way Stephen King wrote his crush with Bev felt very real and eerily similar to what I experienced as a kid. As a kid, I'm sure I had crushes, but with Ben, he said that, oh, I know she's not gonna like me, but me knowing that I like her is enough for me. And when he said that, I'm like, whoa, that is exactly like me. Being fat is kind of like a recipe for having low self-esteem at a certain age, and it doesn't apply to all kids. I remember very outgoing kids that were bigger than me who, was very comfortable with their size and whatnot. But I just know me being an introvert, being quiet, being chubby, especially around 5th grade. Yeah, I didn't really approach anybody, Yeah, I didn't approach anybody. So whenever I did have a crush, I would just, it's gonna sound kind of weird, but far and just appreciate and be like, well, it doesn't matter anyway. Why approach him? It doesn't matter. I feel like I had an odd sense of maturity as a kid because I thought this way. Like, I was 11, I thought this won't matter. When I am 20, 18, an age where you can feasibly see yourself meeting and being with someone, throughout your life. And because of that, there's a segue for Ben to be the mature one in the group. Sure, Bill is the leader, but Ben has this sort of quiet authority about him that people really respected throughout the book. And once again, it showed a lot of parallels to me going through high school and going through, middle school with this sense of, quiet, like, power about yourself. Now, something the book did completely differently, and this is when I'm going to give the spoiler warning, so if you made it this far, there will be spoilers going ahead. I'm sorry I tried, but I have to talk about the final fight when they're adults, because certain things I thought was really cool, and other things I thought was just, why? What's the purpose in that, Stephen King? So, I tilted just ever so slightly. I'm running low. So, Stephen King, the it personification is like this tendril, like, spider that only their minds can, like, come up with, because that's the closest thing they could come up with in their human minds to understand what they were looking at when they saw the true form of it. At first I was disappointed, but the more I read, I said, oh, this is kind of cool. Something so inconspicuously evil that your mind has to choose something else to see it as. So, the actual fight between it and Bill and the Losers Club. The fight between it and the Losers Club. It was very abstract, and that's where I feel like there's a sense of neutrality in it. But then again, it makes sense for what it, is. It is the personification of the loss of childhood innocence. So, if you meet it, you're either probably going to become unalived, or you're going to have to live with a certain guilt of your childhood that you can't, move on from, and you have to go back to. With Eddie, it's the feeling of feeling like he is not fit enough. Ben is, not being enough. Everybody else has their own thing. I didn't watch part 2. I feel like I already said that. Sorry if I repeated that, but I didn't watch part 2 of the movie because when it came out, I was getting worked in college by a whole bunch of computer science classes. So any movie between the years of 2016 to 2020, I probably didn't see, unless it was like Avengers Endgame or something like that. just gonna keep it really brief for now, though. So just listen along. There's not gonna be any more eating sounds. So the fight between it and the kids when they're adults, I actually kind of enjoyed it because I didn't know what was going on half the time. It sounds silly, but fighting it on a macroverse like level, it's like fighting Doctor Strange when he figures out astral projection. They're bumping in between like these interdimensional walls and like a void, and they can't see each other. All they know is that if they bite down hard enough, they're hurting it, and they can hear it scream. They're like, okay, we're doing good. Keep it up, you know? So half of the time during the Ritual of Chud chapter, I didn't know what was going on. And I really enjoyed that. Now, looking back, I keep flip-flopping, but I finished the book probably a week ago as of recording this video. So, yeah. The one thing I didn't like, this is a major spoiler, it involves the death of a character. You have been warned. But, the death of Eddie, I did not like at all. Because, and I understand, Stephen King is a horror novel. He doesn't have to give, perfect endings, beautifully wrapped endings. It can be a mess, and we still love it, But just seeing how Eddie's life played out to where he ended up being just makes me very sad. I don't know why. So, Eddie, in the beginning of the book, he's talking to his wife that basically mirrors his mother at this point. And I should have seen it as a sign, but I didn't look that far into it until now, where Eddie essentially tells her how he does his job, and to just keep doing that until he comes back. But of course he never comes back because, he died. He passed away, I mean. So at the end of the book, there is really no happy ending for, Eddie's wife. Another thing about Eddie's death that makes me so sad is that they left him in its lair. Maybe I missed a paragraph explaining why, and perhaps that would change my, my feeling about the ending, but leaving him in the lair to just never be remembered again, it really doesn't sit well with me. And I understand the message that Stephen King's going for, where he talks about, as we get older, we move on, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because in hindsight, these kids only knew each other for a summer, and then the lifespan of a typical human life, a summer when you're a kid, can't really equate to being best of buddies for the rest of your life, right? And in a vacuum, they just came back together for that. They were friends for one summer, encountered something so utterly terrifying that they moved on with their lives, forgot about it, became successful, came back 27 years later. They meet up, and then, they all fight the monster, then they leave, right? But it's evident that they love each other because they keep saying it throughout the book, right? But at the end, when they all move on, they forget each other's names. They forget why they're even contacting certain people at the end. They're ignoring people's phone calls because they think it's like a telemarketer or something. It's just kind of sad, but honestly, it does kind of resemble real life to an extent. Certain people are just kind of like a chapter in our lives, while others are like, not main characters, but pseudo-main characters. There's a word for it. It starts with a D. This is bothering me. I can't think of the word off the top of my head, I mean. But some people are, the side characters, and I don't want to say side characters like they're your sidekick, but they are a prominent character in the story of your life. Some last for a chapter, others last for the entirety of the book, majority of the book, and I get that, but still, it sucks that Eddie was just kind of forgotten at the end, and there's nobody to really mourn his death besides the people who were immediately there when he died. Okay, so sorry, coughed right there. But I hope you guys enjoyed. This is a super long video again. I genuinely feel like I can yap about books all day. I know that majority of people probably clicked off by now, but if you did enjoy these type of videos where I just talk and yap about books all day, please let me know down below. Say Gorgon if you got to this point, just so that I know if this is something you guys want to continue to, watch, talk, hear about, stuff like that. But yeah, I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. As of this recording, I'm probably